Elvis Presley's closest friends carried guns and sometimes thousands of dollars in cash, all supplied by the king himself. One member of his crew weighed over 400 pounds and was specifically tasked with falling down on command just to make Elvis laugh. 3 of Elvis's bodyguards fired just a year before his death. Company wrote a tell-all book revealing his drug use and eccentricities, claiming they hoped it would be a wake-up call. Elvis once bought his friend Alan Fortas a Cadillac, because Fortas admired it, and then another one for Fortas's father, just because. Members of the Memphis Mafia acted as bodyguards, companions, schedulers, human shields, and errand boys, living a life completely dictated by the king of rock and roll. Number 10. Alan Fortas, the gentle giant who handled the tough stuff. Alan Fortas wasn't there from the absolute beginning, but once he joined Elvis Presley's orbit around 1958, he became a fixture. Think of him as one of the key ranch foreman types within the group. He wasn't necessarily the guy trading jokes with Elvis constantly, but he was the reliable one, the guy who got things done, often the practical, behind-the-scenes muscle. Fortas first connected with Elvis through football. They played touch football together in Memphis. Elvis liked his size and his dependable nature. Standing over 6 feet tall and built solid, Fortas definitely looked the part of someone you wouldn't want to mess with, which came in handy. His official title often floated around foreman or just aide, but his duties were vast and often unglamorous. He helped manage the growing entourage, especially when Elvis bought the Circle G Ranch in Mississippi in 1966. Fortas was essentially put in charge of the ranch operations for a time. This meant dealing with livestock, property maintenance, and keeping the other guys somewhat organized. Not an easy task with the Memphis Mafia. He was known for being level-headed compared to some of the more volatile members. Like others in the group, Fortas's life revolved around Elvis's schedule and whims. If Elvis wanted to go roller skating at 3 a.m., Fortas went. If Elvis needed protection from overzealous fans, Fortas stepped in. If Elvis decided to buy a fleet of cars on a whim, Fortas might be the one dealing with the dealership or driving one of the new purchases back to Graceland. One famous story illustrating Elvis's impulsive generosity involves Fortas directly. They were driving past a Cadillac dealership, and Fortas happened to mention how much he liked a particular model on display. Elvis reportedly turned the car around, marched into the dealership, and bought the Cadillac for Fortas on the spot. Then, thinking Fortas's father might feel left out, Elvis bought another Cadillac for him too, just like that. This wasn't entirely unusual. Extravagant gifts were a hallmark of Elvis's relationship with his inner circle. Cars, jewelry, cash, it flowed freely. Fortas was also present during the infamous summit meeting with the Beatles in 1965 at Elvis's Bel Air home. He was part of the group ensuring security and just generally hanging out while rock royalty awkwardly mingled. He witnessed firsthand the strange dynamic, the initial silence followed by an eventual jam session. He wasn't just muscle, though. Fortas was a confidant to some extent. He saw Elvis at his best and worst. He was there for the fun times, the movie sets, the Vegas shows, the late-night parties at Graceland. He was also there during the more challenging periods, witnessing the increasing isolation and reliance on medication that marked Elvis's later years. Like Red in Sunny West, Fortas was among those abruptly fired by Elvis's father, Vernon Presley, in July 1976. The official reason given was cost-cutting, but the firings deeply hurt the men involved, who felt discarded after years of unwavering loyalty. Unlike the Wests and Dave Hebler, another fired bodyguard, Fortas did not participate in writing the tell-all book, Elvis: What Happened? He maintained a degree of discretion publicly. After Elvis's death, Fortas largely stepped away from the constant limelight that surrounded the king's legacy. He did co-author a book in 1992 titled Elvis: From Memphis to Hollywood, which offered his personal recollections and photographs from his time with Elvis. It was generally seen as a more affectionate and less controversial account compared to Elvis: What Happened? He shared stories of the camaraderie, the adventures, and the unique world they inhabited. Alan Fortas passed away in 1992. His time with Elvis represented a specific role within the Memphis Mafia, the strong, reliable figure who handled practical matters and provided a steady presence, rewarded with incredible generosity but ultimately subject to the same precarious dependence. He saw the craziness, he handled the logistics, and he remained, in the memories of many, one of the more grounded members of the crew. Number 9. George Klein, the lifelong friend who became Elvis's ambassador. George K. Klein's connection to Elvis Presley went way, way back, all the way to Humes High School in Memphis. They were classmates, friends, before Elvis was Elvis. This lifelong bond gave Klein a unique position within the Memphis Mafia. He wasn't just an employee or a bodyguard, he was one of the original Memphis friends who knew Elvis before the fame, fortune, and chaos. Klein was smart, ambitious, and haddock. While Elvis was skyrocketing to fame, Klein was building his own career as a popular Memphis radio DJ and television personality. This connection to the media world proved invaluable to Elvis. Klein acted as a kind of unofficial public relations man, always ready to spin a positive story, play Elvis's records, and generally champion his friend to the public. He was fiercely loyal and protective of Elvis's image. His role in the inner circle was less about physical protection or day-to-day chores and more about companionship, promotion, and being a link to the outside world, especially the Memphis scene they both came from. Elvis trusted Klein implicitly. When Elvis was inducted into the Army, Klein was there to see him off. When Elvis returned, Klein was often involved in organizing welcome, home events, or parties. Klein was a regular presence at Graceland, on movie sets, and backstage in Las Vegas. He was known for his smooth talking and his ability to network. He introduced Elvis to influential people and helped maintain connections within the entertainment industry. Elvis valued Klein's insights and his upbeat personality. GK was often the life of the party, a natural storyteller who could keep Elvis entertained. He was also involved in some of the legendary Memphis Mafia escapades. The fireworks wars, the late-night movie theater rentals, the amusement park takeovers, Klein was often right there in the mix, enjoying the perks of being close to the king. He received his share of lavish gifts, including cars and jewelry, symbols of his status within the group. Because he had his own successful career, Klein's relationship with Elvis was slightly different from some of the others who were entirely financially dependent on the king. While Elvis certainly helped Klein, and Klein benefited immensely from the association, GK maintained his own professional identity. This sometimes gave him a slightly different perspective. He served as an MC for many of Elvis's concerts, warming up the crowd and introducing the king. His voice became familiar to millions of Elvis fans. He was also one of the chosen few who served as a groomsman at Elvis's wedding to Priscilla Bola in 1967, standing alongside Joe Esposito, Marty Lacker, Jerry Schilling, Red West, and Sonny West. This highlighted his importance within the tight-knit group. Klein remained steadfastly loyal throughout Elvis's life, even during the difficult later years. He often spoke about trying to encourage Elvis or shield him from negative influences, though, like everyone else, his ability to truly impact Elvis's choices was limited. He was deeply affected by Elvis's declining health and eventual death. After Elvis passed away in 1977, George Klein became one of the most prominent keepers of the flame. He continued his radio career in Memphis, often featuring Elvis's music and sharing positive stories about his friend. He hosted numerous Elvis-related events, tribute weeks, and fan gatherings. He wrote a memoir, Elvis, My Best Man, detailing their decades-long friendship, focusing on the good times and their deep connection. Klein always emphasized the positive aspects of Elvis, his generosity, his talent, his humor, and his loyalty to his friends. While acknowledging the existence of darker periods, Klein's public persona was that of the ultimate loyal friend, celebrating the legend. He was a frequent guest at Graceland events and remained closely associated with Elvis Presley enterprises. George Klein passed away in 2019, remaining Elvis Presley's friend and advocate until the very end. His story is one of enduring friendship that began in a high school hallway and lasted through decades of unprecedented fame, demonstrating a loyalty that transcended the employer-employee dynamic, seen with some other Memphis Mafia members. He was the friend who became an ambassador for the king. Number 8. Jerry Schilling, the strategist who bridged the gap. Jerry Schilling occupies a fascinating space in the Memphis Mafia chronicle. He was younger than most of the original crew, joining the inner circle in 1964 after initially meeting Elvis a decade earlier during a touch football game. His youth and sharp mind eventually set him apart, allowing him to transition from being just one of the guys to someone involved in Elvis's professional life in a more strategic way. Schilling was introduced to Elvis's world through Red West. Initially, his role was similar to the others: companion, driver, security, general gaffer. He lived at Graceland, traveled with Elvis, and participated in the usual Memphis Mafia activities, the late-night shenanigans, the movie set hangouts, the Vegas trips. He was there for the fun, the boredom, and the occasional chaos. However, Schilling was observant and had ambitions beyond just being part of the entourage. He watched how things operated, particularly the business side of Elvis's career, managed by Colonel Tom Parker. He developed a close, almost brotherly relationship with Elvis, who seemed to appreciate Jerry's thoughtful nature and loyalty. Elvis trusted him, and Schilling became known for his discretion. Unlike some of the rougher-edged members, Schilling had a smoother, more diplomatic approach. This allowed him to navigate the complex dynamics between Elvis, Colonel Parker, and other industry figures more effectively than some. He was present during the '68 comeback special, witnessing the intense creative process and Elvis's triumphant return to live performance. In the early 1970s, Schilling briefly left the group to pursue his own career in Hollywood, film editing. However, his bond with Elvis remained strong, and he was soon drawn back, this time in a slightly different capacity. He started taking on more responsibilities, related to Elvis's professional engagements, acting as a liaison and sometimes offering advice that Elvis, wary of the Colonel, might actually listen to. Schilling was instrumental in arranging the historic meeting between Elvis Presley and President Richard Nixon at the White House in December 1970. Elvis impulsively decided he wanted to meet the president and offer his services as a federal agent at large to combat the drug culture. Schilling, using his resourcefulness and contacts, managed to make it happen within days. He accompanied Elvis to the Oval Office for the surreal meeting, a moment captured in now iconic photographs. His role evolved further. He wasn't just a bodyguard or a pal. He was becoming a trusted advisor, albeit informally. He tried to bridge the gap between Elvis's personal desires and his professional obligations. He managed the TCB Band, Elvis's backing band, for a period, and later went on to have a successful career in music management, handling acts like the Beach Boys and Jerry Lee Lewis. This professional acumen earned him respect both inside and outside the Elvis world. Schilling was deeply concerned about Elvis's health in the later years. He witnessed the toll that prescription drug abuse and the demanding performance schedule were taking. He has spoken about attempts to intervene or raise alarms, often met with resistance from Elvis or blocked by the layers of insulation around the king. He was one of the groomsmen at Elvis and Priscilla's wedding, signifying his acceptance into the core group. His relationship with Priscilla remained amicable even after her split from Elvis, and he maintained ties with the Presley family after Elvis's death. Schilling wasn't involved in the controversial 1977 book, Elvis: What Happened? He chose a different path, maintaining his loyalty while also building his own respectable career. After Elvis's death, he became involved with Elvis Presley Enterprises, contributing to projects that protected and promoted Elvis's legacy, including documentary productions. He authored his own memoir, Me and a Guy Named Elvis: My Lifelong Friendship with Elvis Presley, which provided a nuanced and often poignant look at their relationship. It detailed the incredible highs and the devastating lows, offering insights into Elvis's complex personality and the unique pressures of his fame. Schilling's account is often regarded as one of the more balanced and encyclical perspectives from within the inner circle. Cherry Schilling's story is one of loyalty evolving into strategic support. He navigated the treacherous waters of Elvis's world with intelligence and diplomacy, managing to maintain a close personal bond while also carving out his own successful path. He represented a slightly more modern, business-savvy element within the often chaotic Memphis Mafia. Number 7. Sonny West, the bodyguard who broke the code. Delbert Sonny West Jr., cousin of Red West, became another crucial pillar of Elvis Presley's security detail and inner circle. Joining in 1960, initially to help with Elvis's cars and transportation, Sonny quickly transitioned into a full-time bodyguard and aide, becoming one of the most visible and long-serving members of the Memphis Mafia. Like his cousin Red Sonny, was physically imposing and utterly dedicated to protecting Elvis. His primary role was security. This meant shielding Elvis from overzealous fans, managing crowds, scouting locations for safety, and generally being the muscle that stood between the king and potential threats. He traveled everywhere with Elvis: movie sets in Hollywood, tours across the country, residencies in Las Vegas, dine time at Graceland. Sonny was more than just hired help. He was part of the fraternity. He lived the life, the late nights, the spontaneous trips, the inside jokes, the shared adventures. He was there for the legendary generosity, receiving cars, cash, and jewelry from Elvis. He was also there for the demanding, sometimes bizarre requests that came with being in Elvis's employ. His life, like the others, was completely intertwined with Elvis's needs and moods. He was known for his loyalty and his willingness to put himself on the line for Elvis. There are numerous accounts of Sonny, along with Red and others, physically intervening to protect Elvis during unruly concerts or appearances. They took their jobs seriously, understanding the potential dangers that came with Elvis's level of fame. Sonny was also a participant in the Memphis Mafia's legendary recreational activities. The practical jokes, the fireworks, battles, the motorcycle rides, the rented-out amusement parks, Sonny was usually in the thick of it. He shared in the camaraderie and the unique brotherhood that bonded the group together, despite the internal rivalries and pressures. He stood as a groomsman at Elvis's wedding in 1967, a clear indicator of his status within the inner circle. He witnessed Elvis's personal life unfold, including the marriage to Priscilla, the birth of Lisa Marie, and the eventual strains that led to their divorce. He saw Elvis's triumphs like the '68 comeback special and the record-breaking Vegas shows, but also the growing signs of trouble in the later years. Sonny's relationship with Elvis wasn't always smooth. Like others, he could be subject to Elvis's shifting moods and occasional outbursts. The pressure of constant proximity and the demands of the job could lead to friction. However, for over 16 years, Sonny remained a constant presence. Everything changed dramatically in July 1976. Sonny West, along with his cousin Red West and bodyguard Dave Hebler, was abruptly fired by Elvis's father, Vernon Presley. The stated reason was the need to cut expenses. The firing came as a shock and a deep personal blow to Sonny, who had dedicated most of his adult life to serving Elvis. He felt betrayed and discarded. This event led directly to one of the most controversial episodes in the Elvis saga. Feeling hurt, angry, and genuinely concerned about Elvis's self-destructive path with prescription drugs, Sonny, Red, and Dave collaborated with journalist Steve Dunleavy on the book Elvis, What Happened? Published just weeks before Elvis's death in August 1977. The book detailed Elvis's drug use, his volatile temper, his obsession with guns and law enforcement badges, and other eccentric behavior. The authors stated their intention was to shock Elvis into confronting his problems, a desperate wake-up call from those who felt they had no other way to reach him. However, the book was widely seen as a betrayal by many fans, and those still within Elvis's circle. It shattered the carefully crafted public image of the king. Elvis himself was reportedly devastated and angered by the book's revelations. After Elvis's death, Sonny West found himself in a difficult position. While the book became a bestseller, he was often ostracized by parts of the Elvis Phantom and some former associates. He spent years defending his motivations for writing the book, insisting it came from a place of tough love and concern. Sonny continued to speak about his time with Elvis over the years, giving interviews and appearing at some fan events, often sharing both fond memories and candid reflections on the challenges of being part of that world. He later wrote his own memoir, Elvis, Still Taking Care of Business, offering further details about his life with the king and the circumstances surrounding the controversial book. Sonny West passed away in 2017 after battling cancer. His legacy remains complex. A fiercely loyal bodyguard who spent years protecting Elvis, yet ultimately became one of the figures who exposed the king's private struggles to the world, forever changing the narrative around Elvis Presley. His story highlights the intense loyalty, the deep hurt, and the desperate measures that characterized the final act of the Memphis Mafia. Number 6. Red West, the original bodyguard and conflicted friend. Reginald Red West's story is deeply intertwined with Elvis Presley's, stretching back to their high school days at Whims High in Memphis. Red, a tough athlete, actually protected Elvis from bullies before Elvis even became famous. This act of loyalty forged a bond that would last in various forms for over 2 decades. When Elvis's career exploded, Red West became one of his very first hires, serving as his driver, confidant, and most crucially, his original bodyguard. Red was there from the beginning of the madness. He drove Elvis to early gigs, shielded him from frenzied crowds, and became the prototype for the Memphis Mafia bodyguard role. He was physically imposing, fiercely loyal, and not afraid to use force to protect his friend. He traveled the country with Elvis during the whirlwind rise in the 1950s, went with him to Germany during his army stint, serving nearby, and was a constant presence on movie sets throughout the 1960s. His role wasn't just security. Red was a close friend, someone Elvis relied on for companionship and a connection to his Memphis roots. They shared countless hours, driving, talking, laughing, and navigating the increasingly surreal world of Elvis's fame. Red was more than an employee. He was family, albeit a chosen one. He even co-wrote a few songs that Elvis recorded, including the notable "If Every Day Was Like Christmas" and "Separate Ways." This creative collaboration added another layer to their complex relationship. Red was known for his temper and his protective instincts, which sometimes led to clashes, both physical confrontations with perceived threats and verbal disagreements within the group, or even with Elvis himself. Despite this, his loyalty was rarely questioned for the majority of his tenure. He was one of the select few chosen as groomsmen for Elvis's wedding to Priscilla in 1967. Beyond bodyguard duties, Red also pursued his own aspirations as an actor and stuntman, often appearing in small roles in Elvis's films. Elvis encouraged this, sometimes helping Red get parts. This sideline gave Red a taste of his own identity within the Hollywood machine, although his primary function always remained tied to Elvis. However, the relationship became strained over time, particularly in the 1970s. Red witnessed Elvis's increasing reliance on prescription drugs, his erratic behavior, and his growing isolation. He, along with his cousin, Sonny West, became increasingly concerned about Elvis's health and the perceived negative influences surrounding him. There were confrontations and disagreements, particularly regarding Elvis's deepening drug use and his sometimes dangerous obsession with firearms. The breaking point came in July 1976. Red West, Sonny West, and fellow bodyguard Dave Hebler were fired by Elvis's father, Vernon Presley, citing the need for economy. The firing was abrupt and deeply wounding for Red, who had dedicated 20 years of his life to Elvis. He felt cast aside after years of loyalty and putting his own life on hold. This sense of betrayal, combined with genuine fear for Elvis's well-being, led Red, Sonny, and Hebler to collaborate on the explosive tell-all book, Elvis, What Happened? Published just before Elvis's death in August 1977, The book detailed the king's drug addiction, paranoia, and unhealthy lifestyle. Red West was a primary source, sharing intimate and often disturbing anecdotes. The authors maintained they wrote the book as a desperate attempt to force Elvis to confront his problems, a form of tough love. However, the book caused a massive scandal, shattering Elvis's public image and deeply hurting the king in his final weeks. Many fans and associates condemned it as a vengeful act by disgruntled former employees. After Elvis's death, Red West continued his acting career with considerable success, appearing in numerous films and television shows, perhaps most notably in the film Roadhouse. He carved out a respectable career independent of the Elvis shadow, proving his talent beyond the role of bodyguard. He rarely spoke publicly about Elvis in the immediate years following the controversy, but eventually began to share his perspective more openly. He maintained that his intentions with the book were rooted in concern, however misguided it may have seemed. He expressed both deep affection for the friend he knew and profound sadness over the man Elvis became in his final years. Red West passed away in 2017, just 2 months after his cousin Sonny. His legacy is one of the most complex within the Memphis Mafia, the original protector, the high school friend, the creative collaborator, but also the man who co-authored the book that exposed the king's darkest secrets to the world. His story embodies the intense loyalty, the deep frustrations, and the ultimate tragedy that marked the end of the Elvis Presley era. Number 5. Charlie Hodge, the on-stage sidekick with the high tenor. Charlie Hodge held one of the most unique and visible roles within Elvis Presley's inner circle, particularly during the concert years from 1969 until Elvis's death in 1977. Standing just 5 feet 3 inches, Charlie was a constant presence on stage next to the towering king, a loyal aide instantly recognizable to fans worldwide. Their connection began back in the army. Both Elvis and Charlie were stationed in Germany, although they didn't become close friends until after their service. Charlie was a talented musician himself, a singer and guitarist with a distinctive high tenor voice. He'd had some success with his own group, the Foggy River Boys, before joining Elvis's entourage full-time around 1960. Initially, Charlie's role was similar to the other Memphis Mafia members: companionship, running errands, being part of the crew. He lived at Graceland for many years, occupying a converted apartment over the garage. He was known for his good humor, his musical talent, and his unwavering devotion to Elvis. His role transformed dramatically when Elvis returned to live performing. Charlie became an essential part of the stage show. His official duties included handing Elvis his trademark scarves to toss to the audience, providing Elvis with water or Gatorade during performances, holding the microphone for Elvis when he played guitar or piano, singing harmony vocals his high tenor, blending distinctively with Elvis's baritone, playing acoustic guitar on stage, generally acting as Elvis's right-hand man during concerts, anticipating his needs. Elvis often playfully interacted with Charlie on stage, sometimes making jokes about his shorter stature. This on-stage banter further cemented Charlie's image as the indispensable sidekick. Despite the jokes, the affection between them was evident. Elvis relied on Charlie's steady presence and musical support during the demanding shows. Charlie's musical background meant he could also contribute off stage. He helped Elvis with songs, worked on arrangements, and provided musical companionship. He understood Elvis's musical instincts and preferences, making him a valuable asset during rehearsals and recording sessions. Living at Graceland meant Charlie witnessed Elvis's private life up close. He saw the highs, the creative bursts, the generosity, the moments of joy. He also saw the lows, the increasing isolation, the health problems, the reliance on prescription medication, the mood swings. Charlie was known for his discretion and loyalty, rarely speaking ill of Elvis publicly. He was present during many key moments, from the triumphant return in Las Vegas in 1969 through the grueling tour schedules of the 70s, right up to Elvis's final concert in Indianapolis in June 1977. He saw the physical toll the performances took on Elvis, especially in the later years. Because his role was so intertwined with the stage show and music, Charlie's position seemed relatively secure compared to some of the bodyguards who were let go. He provided a specific, essential function that Elvis depended on nightly. His small size also meant he wasn't perceived as a physical threat or rival, in the same way some of the larger guys might have been, perhaps contributing to his longevity in the inner circle. After Elvis's death in 1977, Charlie Hodge was devastated. He had lost not only his employer but also a close friend and the center of his world for nearly 2 decades. He continued to work in music, often participating in Elvis tribute shows and sharing his memories with fans. He co-authored a book titled Me in Elvis, which offered an affectionate and personal account of his years with the King. His perspective focused heavily on the music, the stage shows, and the day-to-day life at Graceland and on the road. It largely avoided sensationalism, portraying Elvis in a warm, albeit complex light. Charlie remained a beloved figure among many Elvis fans, valued for his first-hand accounts and his unique role by Elvis's side during the iconic concert years. He was a living link to the magic of Elvis, live on stage. Charlie Hodge passed away in 2006. His legacy is that of the ultimate on-stage assistant and musical companion, a small man who played a huge role in the presentation of Elvis Presley to the world during the final electrifying chapter of his live performance career. He was the ever-present aide, the harmony voice, the man handing out the scarves, a fixture in the King's court. Number 4. Billy Smith, the cousin who knew Elvis best. Billy Smith wasn't just a member of the Memphis Mafia. He was family. As Elvis Presley's younger first cousin, their mothers were sisters, Billy grew up alongside Elvis, sharing childhood memories long before fame struck. This deep familial bond gave Billy a unique and arguably the most intimate perspective within the inner circle, especially during Elvis's later years. Billy joined the entourage relatively early on, but became particularly close to Elvis from the mid-1960s onwards. He, along with his wife, Jo, eventually moved into a trailer on the grounds of Graceland. This proximity meant Billy was present, not just for the public appearances or the wild escapades, but for the quiet, private moments, the late-night conversations, the periods of vulnerability, the day-to-day reality of Elvis's isolated life. His role wasn't as clearly defined as bodyguard or foreman. Billy was primarily a companion, a confidant, someone Elvis felt completely comfortable with, someone who represented home and family. Elvis trusted Billy implicitly and seemed to find solace in his presence. While Billy did perform various tasks, driving, running errands, helping with wardrobe, His main function was simply being there for Elvis. Billy and Joe were among the very few people who consistently shared Elvis's private living space at Graceland in the final years. They would often stay up all night talking, watching TV, or reading with Elvis. Because of this closeness, Billy witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of Elvis's prescription drug abuse and declining health. He saw the struggles, the paranoia, and the physical deterioration more clearly than perhaps anyone else. Elvis relied on Billy for honest conversation, even if the truth was difficult. While Elvis often shielded himself from criticism, his bond with Billy allowed for a level of candor that others couldn't risk. Billy has spoken about trying to talk to Elvis about his drug use, often with limited success. But the fact that he could even broach the subject highlights their unique relationship. Billy participated in the usual Memphis Mafia activities, the trips, the gifts. He received cars and other generous items from Elvis, the practical jokes. He was part of the brotherhood. However, his perspective was always slightly different due to the underlying family connection. He wasn't just an employee who could be fired, though technically anyone could. He was blood. He was there for the birth of Lisa Marie and maintained a close relationship with her. He saw the dynamics between Elvis and Priscilla, and later, Elvis and his girlfriend, Linda Thompson, and finally, Ginger Alden. He was a constant presence through changing relationships and shifting moods. The night before Elvis died, Billy and Joe were with him at Graceland. They talked, played racquetball, despite Elvis's poor condition, and shared some of the King's final hours. Billy was one of the last people to speak with Elvis in a casual, personal setting. He was also one of the individuals who discovered Elvis unresponsive the following afternoon, August 16, 1977. The trauma of Elvis's death deeply affected Billy and Joe. They had lost a cousin, a friend, and the central figure around whom their lives had revolved for years. In the aftermath, Billy largely retreated from the intense public scrutiny surrounding Elvis's legacy. For many years, Billy Smith remained relatively quiet compared to other former Memphis Mafia members. He didn't rush to write a tell-all book or seek the spotlight. However, over time, he began to share his memories, often through interviews or collaborations perceived as more authentic and less sensationalized. His accounts provided invaluable insights into the private Elvis, the man behind the myth. Billy, often alongside Joe, eventually co-authored the book Elvis Presley, Revelations from the Memphis Mafia, collaborating with Marty Lacker and Lamar Fike. This book offered a candid, multi-perspective look at life with Elvis, including the difficult later years, but was generally seen as coming from a place of complex affection rather than malice. Billy Smith's perspective is often considered by fans and historians as one of the most reliable and intimate. Because he knew Elvis from childhood to death, and because he shared Elvis's private world so closely in the final years, his recollections carry significant weight. He represents the family thread running through the Memphis Mafia, a reminder that beneath the chaos and fame, there were deep personal connections rooted in shared history and blood. His story is one of enduring family loyalty, immense love, and profound loss. Number 3. Lamar Fike, the gentle giant who endured it all. Lamar Fike was one of the earliest and longest-serving members of Elvis Presley's inner circle, known for his imposing size, his sharp wit, and his enduring loyalty. Joining the group in the late 1950s, Lamar remained a fixture in Elvis's world for nearly 2 decades, experiencing the full spectrum of life inside the Memphis Mafia. Originally from Texas, Lamar met Elvis through booking agent Oscar Davis. Elvis was immediately drawn to Lamar's personality and his unique presence. Lamar wasn't just physically large. His weight fluctuated, sometimes exceeding 400 pounds. He had a big personality to match. He was intelligent, well-read, and possessed a dry sense of humor that Elvis appreciated. His role within the group was multifaceted. He wasn't primarily a bodyguard, although his size certainly offered a degree of intimidation. He was more of a companion, a confidant, and eventually took on responsibilities like managing the lighting for Elvis's stage shows during the concert years. This technical role suited his sharp mind and attention to detail. Lamar was known for being one of the more outspoken members of the group, not always afraid to voice his opinion, even if it occasionally led to friction with Elvis or others. Despite this, his fundamental loyalty to Elvis was unwavering. He truly cared for Elvis and was deeply invested in his well-being. One of the most famous and perhaps strangest anecdotes about Lamar involves his size. Elvis apparently found it incredibly amusing to see Lamar fall down. According to various accounts, Elvis would sometimes ask Lamar to perform a pratfall just for a laugh. Lamar, understanding Elvis's eccentric sense of humor and the dynamics of the group, would reportedly oblige on occasion. This speaks volumes about the often bizarre nature of life within Elvis's court, where even potentially humiliating acts could be framed as expressions of loyalty and camaraderie. Lamar was present for almost everything. The Army years, he visited Elvis in Germany, the Hollywood movie era, the return to live performing, the Vegas residencies, the endless days and nights at Graceland. He saw Elvis evolve from a young rock and roll star into a global icon and, later, into an increasingly isolated and troubled figure. He was part of the legendary spending sprees, receiving generous gifts from Elvis, including cars and cash. He also endured the less glamorous aspects: the boredom, the long hours waiting for Elvis to wake up or decide what to do, the need to be available 24/7. Lamar's sharp mind sometimes chafed under the constraints and lack of personal freedom, but his affection for Elvis kept him there. Lamar was known for his connections within the music industry beyond Elvis. He had friendships and working relationships with other artists and industry figures, which sometimes gave him a broader perspective than some of the other guys who existed solely within Elvis's orbit. He witnessed Elvis's marriage, the birth of Lisa Marie, and the eventual divorce. He saw the toll that fame, pressure, and prescription drug abuse took on his friend. Lamar was deeply concerned about Elvis's health in the later years and, like others, felt frustrated by his inability to effect real change. He wasn't among the group fired in 1976 and remained associated with Elvis until the end. After Elvis's death in 1977, Lamar Fike remained involved in the music business. He worked with various artists and maintained his connections within the industry. He also became an important source for those seeking to understand the complex reality of Elvis's life. Lamar and Company authored the book Elvis Aaron Presley, Revelations from the Memphis Mafia, along with Marty, Lacker, and Billy Smith. This book provided a candid, multi-voiced account of their time with Elvis, offering detailed insights into both the incredible highs and the tragic lows. Lamar's contributions were noted for their intelligence and often blunt honesty. He continued to share his memories through interviews and participation in documentaries over the years. His perspective was valued for its longevity, having been there almost from the start, and his intellectual take on the events he witnessed. He offered a unique viewpoint as someone who was both an insider and at times a wry observer of the circus surrounding the king. Lamar Fike passed away in 2011. His legacy is that of the witty, intelligent, large-than-life figure who was a constant in Elvis's world for 2 decades. He endured the craziness, managed the stage lights, offered companionship, took the occasional pratfall, and remained loyal through thick and thin, providing a unique and enduring perspective on the king and his court. Number 2. Marty Lacker, the coal foreman with strong opinions. Marty Lacker was another key figure from Elvis Presley's early Memphis days, a friend from high school who became deeply integrated into the inner workings of the Memphis Mafia. Known for his intelligence, organizational skills, and sometimes strong opinions, Marty served alongside Joe Esposito as one of the 2 co-foremen for significant periods, helping manage the logistics and personnel of Elvis's chaotic world. Lacker reconnected with Elvis after the Army years and quickly became an indispensable part of the group in the early 1960s. Elvis trusted him, relying on his business sense and his understanding of the Memphis scene they both knew so well. As co-foreman, Marty's responsibilities included handling finances, managing the large sums of cash Elvis always kept on hand, scheduling travel, coordinating with staff at Graceland and on the road, and generally trying to impose some order on the often unruly entourage. He was known for being smart, articulate, and not afraid to speak his mind, even to Elvis. This sometimes put him at odds with the king or other members of the group, particularly Colonel Tom Parker, whom Marty openly distrusted and criticized for his management of Elvis's career. Marty felt the colonel was holding Elvis back creatively and financially, a view he wasn't shy about expressing, at least within the inner circle. Despite occasional clashes, Marty's loyalty to Elvis as a friend was profound. He cared deeply about Elvis's well-being and career direction. He was one of the driving forces behind Elvis, recording in Memphis again in 1969, sessions held at American Sound Studio. Marty believed Elvis needed to reconnect with his musical roots and record more soulful contemporary material. He helped persuade Elvis and facilitated the sessions, which resulted in landmark hits like Suspicious Minds, In the Ghetto, and Kentucky Rain, rejuvenating Elvis's recording career. This stands as one of Marty's most significant positive impacts. Marty Lacker wasn't just a manager, he was a close friend. He shared in the camaraderie, the inside jokes, and the unique lifestyle. He was chosen by Elvis to be one of 2 co-best men at his wedding to Priscilla in 1967, along with Joe Esposito, signifying his importance and closeness to Elvis at that time. He witnessed the excesses and the pressures firsthand. He saw the generosity, the cars, the gifts, the cash flowing freely. He also saw the darker side, the isolation, the mood swings, the growing dependence on prescription drugs, and the often stifling control exerted by Colonel Parker. Marty's business background gave him a particular perspective on the financial arrangements, often leaving him frustrated by what he perceived as exploitation. His relationship with Elvis could be volatile. There were periods of intense closeness and periods of distance or disagreement. Marty left the group for a time in the late 1960s to focus on his own ventures in the Memphis music industry, including running American Sound Studio, but he always remained connected to Elvis personally. He rejoined the fold later, though his role might have shifted. Like others who expressed concerns or disagreements, Marty sometimes found himself temporarily on the outs, but the underlying friendship usually brought him back. He was genuinely concerned about Elvis's health and the trajectory of his life in the 1970s, sharing these worries with other close members like Billy Smith and Lamar Fike. Marty was not among those fired in 1976 and was not involved in the Elvis, What Happened book. After Elvis's death, Marty Lacker became a vocal and often critical commentator on Elvis's life and career, particularly regarding the management of Colonel Parker and the circumstances surrounding Elvis's decline. He co-authored the book Elvis Aaron Presley, Revelations from the Memphis Mafia, with Billy Smith and Lamar Fike. The book provided a detailed and often blunt account of their experiences. Marty's contributions were characterized by his sharp memory for details, his strong opinions, and his willingness to discuss controversial topics, including Elvis's drug use and his frustrations with the Colonel. Marty remained a significant voice in the Elvis world, frequently sharing his memories and insights through interviews and online forums. He was respected for his first-hand knowledge and his passionate defense of Elvis's talent, even while being critical of the choices made by and for the King. He often sought to correct what he saw as inaccuracies in the Elvis narrative. Marty Lacker passed away in 2017. His legacy is that of the intelligent, outspoken friend and co-foreman who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo within Elvis's world. He played a key role in managing the chaos, significantly influenced Elvis's return to Memphis recording glory, and remained a passionate, albeit sometimes critical, guardian of his friend's memory. Number 1. Joe Esposito, the foreman, the best man, the road manager. If the Memphis Mafia had a chief operating officer, it was Joe Esposito. Hired in 1960 after meeting Elvis during their army service in Germany, Joe quickly became arguably the most important figure in managing the practical day-to-day aspects of Elvis Presley's life and career. His official titles included road manager and, most famously, foreman, often sharing the latter title with Marty Lacker, but generally seen as the primary organizer. Originally from Chicago, Joe brought a level of professionalism and organization skill that was crucial for handling the complex logistics surrounding a superstar like Elvis. While others provided muscle or companionship, Joe made things happen. His responsibilities were immense, managing Elvis's demanding schedule, coordinating appearances, travel, and recording sessions, handling payroll for the rest of the Memphis Mafia and household staff, dealing with finances, paying bills, and managing the large amounts of cash Elvis preferred, acting as the main liaison between Elvis and Colonel Tom Parker, as well as other business contacts, studio heads, and promoters, overseeing security arrangements alongside the bodyguards, making sure Elvis's personal needs were met, from travel accommodations to specific requests, troubleshooting the endless problems that arose from managing a large entourage and a global superstar. Joe was known for his calm demeanor, his efficiency, and his unwavering loyalty to Elvis. He was meticulous and reliable, qualities Elvis depended on heavily. While deeply integrated into the inner circle and a close friend, Joe maintained a more professional air than some of the other members. He understood the importance of discretion and managing the often delicate situations that arose. His closeness to Elvis was undeniable. Elvis chose Joe Esposito to be his co-best man, along with Marty Lacker, at his wedding to Priscilla Bowley in Las Vegas in 1967. This role underscored Joe's position as one of Elvis's most trusted confidants. Joe was there for the major milestones, the highs of the '68 comeback special, the triumph of the Aloha from Hawaii satellite broadcast, the record-breaking Vegas shows, and the lows of Elvis's declining health and personal struggles. Joe traveled everywhere with Elvis, managing the complex logistics of tours and film shoots. He was a constant presence packed, ensuring the shows ran smoothly. He dealt with the press, handled fan intrusions, and generally served as the buffer between Elvis and the outside world. He witnessed the incredible generosity, receiving gifts like cars and bonuses, but also dealt with the immense pressure and demands of being constantly on call. He had a front-row seat to Elvis's personal life, including his relationships, his moods, and his increasing reliance on prescription medication. While Joe maintained a public image of steadfast loyalty and discretion, later accounts suggest he was deeply concerned about Elvis's health in the final years. However, his role often required him to facilitate Elvis's demands, putting him in a difficult position. Joe Esposito was with Elvis until the very end. He was at Graceland on August 16, 1977, and was one of the key figures who dealt with the immediate, chaotic aftermath of Elvis's death. He helped make the difficult arrangements, notified Priscilla and Colonel Parker, and managed the situation amidst the unfolding media frenzy and outpouring of grief. After Elvis's death, Joe remained involved in managing aspects of Elvis's legacy for a time, and worked with Elvis Presley Enterprises on various projects. He became one of the most sought-after sources for information about Elvis, valued for his central role and his detailed knowledge of Elvis's professional life. He authored several books about his time with Elvis, including Good Rockin' Tonight, 20 Years on the Road, and On the Town with Elvis. His accounts generally focused on the professional relationship, the day-to-day operations, and major career events, often presenting a more organized and business-like perspective of the Elvis world compared to the more personal or emotionally charged accounts of others. While loyal, his books did acknowledge the challenges and difficulties of Elvis's later years. Joe frequently appeared at Elvis-related events, conventions, and in documentaries, sharing his memories and insights. He was generally regarded as a reliable source for the logistical and organizational aspects of Elvis's life. Joe Esposito passed away in 2016. His legacy is that of the ultimate insider, the indispensable organizer who kept the Elvis Presley machine running for nearly 2 decades. He was the foreman, the road manager, the best man, and a crucial figure who navigated the complex intersection of Elvis's personal life and professional demands, remaining a loyal and key player until the final curtain fell.